Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here, as I've mentioned, to discuss internship and job search strategies. The search is on. Today we're going to go over the whole process, including strategies, tips, things to avoid, how to translate this to your resume, timeline, important factors, all of that from a more general perspective, to hopefully help kind of tailor it to what you're doing with your own current internship or job search. I figured we'd start with some introductions and then we kind of dive into the slides. So I'm Ashley Dwyer. I'm the new Director of Internships and Career Services here at Rockefeller College. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague.
Hi, my name is Joan Marceau. I'm the Internship and Career Coordinator with Rockefeller College.
Awesome. We also have Leslie here. She's our phenomenal GA helping out. So a little bit about the agenda for today. Like I mentioned, we're going to go over some benefits, the importance of skill sets as it pertains to your search, the whole process, strategies, tips, advice to consider, important dates, current priorities, translating your experience to your resume, because that is crucial as well during and following the internship or new job opportunity. Additional elements to an effective search, helpful search link, tools, and some career resources. Just a little overview for you all. So beginning with some internship and job search benefits. Overall, just, beginning this process and engaging in this process will help initially enhance your industry knowledge. Sometimes this can be something that, you put off for whatever reason. Oh, I have classes, I have other engagements, commitments. I'm busy and I don't necessarily have the time to do so. What I would encourage you to do, and we'll discuss this during the timeline as well, is to get started as soon as possible and not be fearful of that process. You're going to gain a lot of insight into different types of positions, opportunities, the industry as a whole. That's going to help really kind of navigate and tailor your own search. So, don't hesitate with this process. We're here to help you with every step of the way, but try not to avoid it, dive into it, particularly, sooner rather than later as you pursue internships and full-time job opportunities. It will also help you develop your skills and professionalism as a whole. So pursuing these types of, various internships and job opportunities help you develop those direct relevant skills to your particular major, as well as transferable skills as well. So communication, teamwork, leadership, etc. We'll talk about that. It's also going to help you hone in on your interest in your career path. So important and crucial that you're pursuing opportunities that you're invested in. So, participating in internships, pursuing job opportunities, but also simply just seeking them will help you hone in on your interests as it pertains to your career path. And as you're engaged in internship and job placements or, opportunities, it will give you that direct exposure to hands-on experience in the workplace, which is very telling for future internships or future jobs for that matter. As you're engaging in these positions too, you'll also develop and enhance your network as a whole, which is pretty critical for you as a professional, just, continuing in the field, but further as you pursue additional opportunities, whether it's, again, additional internships, jobs, or perhaps other ways to connect with colleagues in the field. And then obviously having some sort of an internship or pursuing jobs, of course, gives you that competitive edge for future opportunities as well. You're able to kind of highlight relevant, at the very least, transferable experience that you can sell to a future employer as well. So skills are pretty critical to identify and articulate in the search process. So what do employers want? And I'm speaking more directly to Rockefeller students in this case. NASPA is our accrediting agency, and they list out a variety of different skill sets, capabilities, competencies that they seek for, or that they require for students to pursue and have, during their time as students through internships, but also as they pursue full-time opportunities. So research, identifying these skills, and there's a reason I'm just simply listing them out, because identifying them, understanding what they are is critical as you articulate this on your resume, apply for positions, and articulate it in the interview process. Not to mention, many employers are going to highlight a lot of these skill sets in the qualifications of job applications. So as you're looking at those qualifications, you want to understand, do I have these skill sets? How can I articulate them? How can I sell them to future employers? So for Rockefeller students in particular, these are some of the skill sets, as you're seeing, that are pretty critical in your search process that you'll see as qualifying skills or something that you're going to want to highlight. So certainly research, communication, data, program evaluation, policy analysis, constituent relations, leadership, teamwork, critical thinking, analytical decision-making, all very critical. But for our students who are non-Rockefeller students on the call, certainly, we also work with NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they highlighted 8 career readiness competencies that employers are seeking based on a national survey. And these are transferable skill sets that are applicable to Rockefeller students too, really all students. So again, the reason I'm highlighting this is because identifying them and understanding what they are and how you have these skill sets will help you in this whole process. So these are a bit more transferable since they apply to all fields, but communication, critical thinking, leadership, teamwork, technology, some of the same ones that we saw for NASPA. So, you know, the skills aspect is very important. Obviously, having a passion, genuine interest in the company and the opportunity is equally important. So we have kind of those 2 main factors of, am I qualified and am I interested in the position? And thinking about, where did I gain these skill sets? You know, some of you might say, I've never had an internship before. So how can I don't, you know, what if I don't have these skill sets, or I have the experiences to support these skill sets? I would just encourage you to dig deep, because as current students, first of all, you're gaining a lot of these skill sets right in the classroom. Research, analysis, evaluation, problem solving, critical thinking, all of those are very much being developed through group projects, research, et cetera, whether you're a Rockefeller student or not, as early as freshman year. So those are things you can articulate on your resume through an academic research coursework section to highlight those. But also consider that these skills do not always have to just come from an internship or a job. They can also come from clubs, leadership roles you've had, volunteer work, even athletics, part-time seasonal type opportunities. It's not so linear that it has to come from one avenue. So consider, what have been my experiences as a whole? And for younger students, you can tap into some high school experiences as well to further articulate that. So a little bit more on skills. Internships and entry-level jobs are fundamentally about building skills. So learning what skills you enjoy using, right? What skills are missing from your repertoire? What strengths do you want to further develop? What activities do you want to observe? And where am I likely to find supportive mentors, so that you can further kind of, and, you know, discuss your experiences, enhance your skill sets, understanding of the field. It's going to require you, when you're in these internship and job opportunities, it's going to require you to engage a little to further develop the skills that you want as well. Hopefully the positions will be set up so that you will organically develop some of these skill sets. But if you have an idea of them as it pertains to your particular career path, you can articulate that to supervisors too. So just a little bit about the skills aspect, which is crucial for the internship job search process. Pass it over to Joan.
All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the ideal internship or job search process, and you can go ahead right to the next slide. So I think that if you think about the last time you looked for a job or an intern, whether it was an internship or you were looking for a part-time job or a summer job or something like that, I mean, how did you go about it? Most of the time, people go about it by looking for ads, seeing who's posting, checking the job site, websites, seeing what they're looking for, and figuring out how you fit in and how you can sell yourself to the employer. Now, that's not really wrong, but it's a little bit backwards. So if you think about kind of that seller consumer, like, it's kind of that approach that, like, the sellers are selling a job and you're the consumer and you're just instead of just seeing what's out there and figuring out how you fit in. You want to flip it and be more that smart consumer, and figure out what you're looking for. Just like that last slide where, um, yeah, you can go to the next slide, but where Ashley was saying, like, what do you want to learn? So it's really not so much about what they want, it's about what you want. So don't focus so much on what they're looking for and how you fit into the employer's kind of pegs and holes and plugging yourself in. Think about what you want. So it might be, what skills do you want to continue to develop, whether that's an internship or your first job out of college. If you're thinking that is your first step to your long career, what are the skills you want to continue to develop? Things that may be strengths that you want to continue to develop, things that you're missing that you'd like to learn more about, so that you have a more well-rounded resume the next time you're looking for another internship or a job after graduation, or the next job in your career path. And in the case particularly of internships, you're often paying money. If you're getting credit, you're paying money to get credit for an internship. You're often working for, not that much money, or sometimes for no money. So you want to think you're going to get experience out of it, and that's important. But you're also offering, you have something to give them. You have some valuable skills and work that you can do for them. So you want to think about it from what you have to give and what you're looking for. And it's a subtle mind shift, but I think it will help you kind of approach the job search process in a slightly different way. So you can flip to the next slide. Once
I was just going to jump in
this old,
real quick for Joan for one moment.
yeah, go
To
ahead.
your point, it's not just a one-way street. It's definitely a two-way street. The employer doesn't want candidates who aren't invested in them, and vice versa. So like, yes, you have to identify what you want, and if that matches with the employer, all the better. But if not, it's not just about them hiring you. If you're not interested in that, that's no good for the employer either. So just kind of touching on that.
No, I think that's true. And we talk about that in networking all the time, that it's a two-way street. And I think we often think with students, you're a little like you're at a disadvantage. And I think sometimes you feel that way, in your first job or internship, you don't have as much to offer. You're going to get more out of it, but they're getting a lot from it. And it's that two-way street is the way to approach it. So, and this really only works if you become an informed consumer. You want to put yourself in charge of your job search. A job search is not just something you do in a few minutes in your spare time. A job search, particularly if you're graduating and getting your first full-time job, getting a job is a job. And getting an internship is a chunk of time that's going to take you to do that if you really want to do it well. You want to put yourself in charge. People can't do it for you. You can't just walk into Ashley's or my office and say, so what jobs you got for me, or what internship you got for me? It doesn't work like that. We can talk with you and help you figure out what you're looking for and ask you questions to help you and point you towards resources. But we can't find a job for you or can't find an internship for you because we don't know what you want. We don't know what skills you want to develop. We don't know how this is going to fit in with your career goals. So we can help guide and offer advice and suggestions and ask questions and point you, but you really need to take care of, you really need to do it yourself and put yourself in charge. And it's a lot of work. Like I said, it's not something that just happens overnight, but learning that skill now will help you the rest of your life, because for most people, you're going to be doing job searches multiple times in your life. So this is a skill that's going to help you really get there. Okay,
And if I
go to the
can
next
just
slide.
real quick, I'll
Yes,
just add
no,
on to that.
please do.
It's easy and understandable to some extent to have your search fall to the bottom of the priority list because you are a student first and you have other competing priorities. But if you neglect it to the point of never touching it and just expecting it's going to happen quickly, then it won't happen, right? Unfortunately, it won't happen in that time frame. So I usually tell students, like, whatever process is going to work for you. We don't expect you to look at this every single day. Maybe once a week leading into your search, you dedicate an hour on a Sunday to do this, or whatever is going to work with your schedule. that will keep you on track. Otherwise, weeks will go by and it will fall to the bottom potentially, and understandably so. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Great point. Great point. So I think the other thing that I find a lot of students approach this process, there's a continuum. Some students are, I have no idea what I want to do. There's a zillion things out there and I can't even figure out where to start. And some students are like, I want to do this job. They're here in this place, and I want to make this much money. And you may or may not be qualified for that specific job at this point in your career or that specific internship. So there's a continuum, and people fall somewhere in the middle. Few people are way on the extremes. But what I like to encourage people to do is to initially think big and then focus and narrow down. And what do I mean by that? So I like to think about 3 different kind of categories that you can think big on and then focus down on. So what are those categories? One is the type of organization. So do you want to work in a private company? Do you want to work in a nonprofit organization? Do you want to work in a government agency? Do you want, like those kind of categories of types of organizations? The second area is the field or the interest area. So are you interested in environmental issues? Are you interested in educational issues? Are you interested in, so whatever, even within your field, some of you, many of you might be political science, public policy, criminal justice majors in Rockefeller, but some of you might be biology majors or business majors. In whatever field you're in, there's subsections of that field. And what kind of areas are you most interested in? And then the third is kind of the job tasks and responsibilities. What do you like to do on a daily basis? Do you want to be doing research? Do you want to be presenting to people? Do you want to be talking to people? Do you want to be creating policy? Do you want to be analyzing numbers? So like there's a lot of different skills and job tasks. Again, going back to the skills Ash talked about at the beginning. So when you think about each of those 3 areas, what I encourage students to do first is think big. Like, what are the different options? Which ones are the types of organizations I'm most interested in? Which ones are there other fields? Like, you've always been interested in environmental issues, but are there other kind of similar things that you also have an interest in? Again, particularly if you're looking at internships, sometimes you can't always find an internship in what you want to do, where you live. There's not a lot of options around that right where you live, and you're going to school here, so you don't have a lot of options. If you want an internship during the semester, you need to still be in Albany. So what are some other things you're kind of interested in? And what are the job tasks? So, and this goes back to those skills, which are things that you are good at and you want to continue to develop, and which are skills that you're missing that you might like an internship or a first job to help you build some skill sets. So once you kind of expand and think big and brainstorm a list of all the different organizations, the different types of kind of subfields, policy areas you're interested in, and then the different kind of job tasks, now you've thought big, then I want you to focus down. Now here's the trick. You want to focus down in 1 or 2 areas and remain broad in the other 1 or 2 areas. If you focus down in all 3 areas, that's going to leave you with maybe, 3 internships to apply for, maybe 0 internships to apply for, or 0 jobs or only 3 jobs to apply for. If you stay way broad and too many, it's going to leave you hundreds of things to apply for, and that's too much. So by narrowing down, so what's the most important to you? Maybe you don't care if you're working in a business or a nonprofit or a government agency, but you really are focused on environmental issues. So that's what you want to focus on. And you're interested in research, but you're also interested in some analysis or some other skills. So maybe that one's you've got a few areas you're interested in. Does that make any sense in terms of kind of thinking big so that you can focus down in a few areas? And it helps make that hundreds and thousands of options maybe be 50 or 60 internships that look interesting. And then you can narrow down from there to apply to the top choices. Thoughts, questions? All right. So and I think Ashley mentioned this a little bit too, thinking about what you want to learn and accomplish in this internship or in this first job to get you to that next step. So identifying what you want to learn now as you think forward, if you want to do this, whatever it is, the career you're interested in, are you missing some skills? Are there some experiences? Are there people you'd like to meet that would help you reach that? And once you kind of figure out what you want, having this thought process first, then you can dive in and actually start the process, spending the next few months actually looking for, applying to, and working hard to find that job or internship. Makes sense? And I think this is where I toss it back to you.
Sounds good. So where do you begin, right? Because we've kind of talked about some of the thoughts leading into it and, prefaced with important skills and ways to think about it and consider it and approach it. So where do you begin? So definitely begin with surveying the field. I always tell students information is power. So gather as much information as you can, whether that be through informational interviews, so like the opportunity to have conversations with like-minded individuals in the field, whether it's alumni or other employers, or simply the process of searching for internships and jobs can be extremely telling. Having conversations at networking events, researching specific industries, in terms of what are the, even companies for that matter. Maybe if you're considering working for, a particular government agency or organization, simply researching their website or utilizing resources like LinkedIn to gather more information on their mission, their vision, their goals. Same with industries. All of this surveying of this information, gathering this information will help you further kind of tailor and hone your search, which is important because, to Joan's point, there's going to be search sites, including Handshake, that have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of postings, and that is completely overwhelming. So it is incredibly crucial to narrow that focus down so it's not so overwhelming. So having a sense of that will help. So to that point, conduct extensive research, right? As Joan mentioned, and this is not to scare you off, it's just to prepare you. Like, it does take time, and effort putting into this, and that can come in whatever form you deem fit for you, right? Whether it's once a week, few times a week, once every 2 weeks if you're ahead of the game. But being consistent with that and making sure that you're, digging your heels in and really doing that research to search for positions is very important. So, tap into general, but also industry specific online resources and search sites. So for example, USA Jobs is, a very industry specific site for Rockefeller students, whereas LinkedIn and Indeed.com are a little bit more broad. And we're going to have a whole slide of resources towards the end. And once you're utilizing these search engines, utilizing filters to tailor your search to your interest and goals is like I said, very critical, helping you kind of hone in on that. And you're going to find times that maybe you get too narrow and there's not enough postings in which you can broaden out again. Again, this will broaden your perspective, maybe thinking big and then focusing. So all of this typically before starting on, your cover letter at the very least, maybe not so much the resume specifically. The resume you can continue to work on. The reason being is that you can tailor then your cover letter specifically to a specific position application and your resume at times. I mean, if you are applying to a lot of similar, if you've decided, okay, I want to work in, policy, legislation, and governments, I'm going to apply to a lot of similar positions in that area. There's not going to be a lot of changes to your resume per se, right? But if you're applying to a few different types of industries, maybe more education related policy or administration versus more, let's say government, for example, then you might have a different resume for those two different fields or areas of interest. The cover letter is tailored for each position. But again, that doesn't always require you to reinvent the wheel. If you're applying to similar positions, you can make slight kind of changes to indicate interest in roles. But that's more cover letter focused. All this to say is it's helpful to wait on at least your cover letter and sometimes your resume until you have a list of positions that you want to apply to, so you can tailor them accordingly. Oh. Okay, there we go. General cautions and tips. So well-known larger are not always the best fit or organization for you. So sometimes it can be implied that a well-known or larger organization is that's what I have to do because of the reputation and the size and all of that. That's not to say it isn't the right fit, but it doesn't always mean that it is. There's other options out there too, in terms of smaller organizations, mid-sized companies, different types of sectors, as well, as Joan mentioned, whether it's nonprofit, government, private, local government, federal government, what have you. So you certainly have options available to you, and you might go in thinking I 100% need to work at, let's say the federal government, but I found that really like local and town government opportunities are interesting, and I had a really good experience with them, and that might totally change the trajectory of where you thought you would go. So to the concept of being open-minded, just consider that it's not always the most well-known or the largest organizations that are 100% right for you. If you've heard of it, so have others, so have backups. I tell students to never put all their eggs in one basket anyway, so I would keep options available to you. But with that being said, and this jumps down a few bullet points, this doesn't necessarily mean quantity over quality. In fact, I usually recommend quality over quantity, but just consistency, meaning I would rather see you as a student apply to 3 positions that you've actually researched and are interested in, as opposed to, 25 blindly. I'm not suggesting you put all those eggs in those 3 kind of positions or applications, but just be consistent, right? So there's going to be new postings almost daily. So maybe you apply to 3 positions this week, 5 the next week, 2 the following. So, you're better off being intentional in that process, whether that means 3 applications or 10. That's up to you and the time and the effort you have to put into that. But, having those backups and being intentional in that and consistent in that process is definitely key. It says here, be careful about well-known people or places that will use you only for routine administrative tasks. So there are going to be organizations that maybe are not providing the most impactful or engaging internship experience, and are going to more use it for more of an administrative support or things of that nature. Sometimes you can't always tell that in the job or the internship application, but you can definitely ask about it in the interview process, or you can also research them and even reviews of those organizations to get a sense of that. There's also a great site, I know Joan's familiar with this, called Glassdoor, that provides reviews of companies, people employed at the company, but also the interview process. So that can be very helpful in anticipating that as well, but definitely something you can ask about in the interview process too. Think about why here before you apply. So obviously that just goes hand in hand with the intentionality of things. Like, really consider, is this something that matches not only my qualifications and my skills, but, just as importantly, if not more, am I invested in this, my interest, my passion in it? Whether that be based on the company specifically or the industry or the position. Be specific, be skeptical, right? So just definitely look out for any weird red flags in the application process. Ask questions, protect yourself, but yeah, be tailored, be specific to what you want. You're better off going for what you want, and certainly keeping your options open by applying to different types of opportunities and multiple opportunities. But, be specific in that process. A little bit on focus and flexibility. So focus on what's important, right? The types of organizations or responsibility, but be flexible at that same time, to consider options that you wouldn't typically go for. So Joan and I were talking to students at the career fair last week about this, like, consider, looking at all the employers attending and maybe chatting with some that you weren't typically considering, just to get a sense. Is this something I might be interested in? You might be pleasantly surprised. So, just keeping an open mind with that. Obviously, there's going to be some positions where you're like, no, this is not for me, and that's it. And that's fair, because it's got to be what's best for you. But being open to conversation and that's the beauty of networking too. Not to go too in depth about networking, is it's never about what one individual can do to benefit you, right? It's about building those rapports, and that can lead to conversations for other opportunities. So being open-minded and flexible opens the doors for that. But so most importantly, if you're at work, you can be the buyer, because it comes back to the concept of you put into it, you get out of it what you put into it, right? And putting that work in specifically to make sure you reach those goals. Again, Joan and I in our office, in the main career office as well, can support you in this process significantly, but you ultimately have to take that initiative to identify what you want. And I've always told students, like, nobody knows you better than you. So you know what you bring to the table, maybe not necessarily what you want, but you'll discover that as you explore that. A little bit about timeline, and I was very general here, considering we might have students from various majors. It obviously varies based on industry for some, but I'll touch on internships to begin with, and feel free to jump in, Joan, if you have any thoughts. But most internships, I'll mention this, I would say probably, and this is a general statement, but probably the most amount of internships occur in the summer. But there are definitely internships throughout the academic year as well, in the fall and the spring. So it's important to note that, because I have worked with a lot of students who don't necessarily realize that. While summer is a popular time frame to pursue internships, you can definitely opt into fall or spring options too, especially for Rockefeller students, looking to gain approval for their internship. So most summer internships occur anywhere from like May, June through August, early September. They might be shorter, they might be, a little bit longer. Sometimes internships are designed to be short-term learning experiences, but they can sometimes extend into another season. That's an option. That's case by case. Typically with summer, applications will open up like late fall, early spring semester. So anywhere from like a November, December, as at the more earlier timeframes, all the way through to like March, April. With that being said, as I said at the bottom here, certain organizations and companies recruit earlier in the fall for summer. For example, Deloitte is a company we work with for consulting, business analyst type opportunities, and they tend to recruit earlier in the fall.
Ashley, can I just add that on that same note, a lot of federal government or any kind of security type organization that's going to require a security clearance, they are usually recruiting 6 to 9 months before the start date, just because of the time frame for that. Which I know for students in Rockefeller and EHC, that's an important thing to consider.
So definitely prepare in advance. We're here to help you in that as early as like the summer prior. I know it sounds crazy early, but there's just processes that are put in place or competitive aspects that go into these earlier time frames. Really good point with regards to government. Thanks, Sean. And then for fall, fall internships, I would say of the three are probably the least, I don't know if popular is the right word, but least popular or like least amount of internships. Most internships are either spring or summer. There's still fall options though. And they will typically range anywhere from August through December, with applications opening in late spring to early summer. And then for spring internships, obviously January through May timeframe is when they occur. Applications opening in, late summer, early fall for the spring. So.
And I would say it probably depends a little bit upon the field. Some fields, there's internships all year round. Some are more focused on, certain seasons. So
some will even advertise it as this is a summer internship, but we offer the option for part-time internship hours during the academic year. Or, there's also options I'll just mention, and we'll get into this, like, we're local to the Albany area for academic year internships, but you can pursue remote options during the academic year as well. So that's another piece. And then for full-time jobs, I know most graduates are May, spring graduates. So I would consider, again, especially for Rockefeller students in the government application process, preparing those applications and starting that search process early, as early as summer or early fall of your, final year leading up to graduation. There will be options. I have to say this, there's still going to be options with nonprofit organizations and different organizations that will continue all the way through spring. I don't want you to think that if you missed the fall, you've missed out on any possible opportunity. I've had a lot of students ask me that in the past with different industries. There will still be organizations and probably even some government entities that are just a little delayed in the process, who will continue to seek out all the way leading up to graduation and beyond. With that being said, we strongly just encourage you to prepare in advance, connect with us as early as you can. You know, we can support you in that process and engage in the search process early, you know, at the very least. You know, and I've had students say to me too, well, if I recruit or if I search as early as the fall, how will I know if those organizations are looking to hire you in May or looking to hire immediately? Well, typically they tell you in the posting. Most of the time they're pretty clear in the posting. This is an immediate fill. We need someone immediate. So that might be more applicable for a fall graduate, a December grad, or the dates of hire, or the application deadline is this, and we anticipate a start date of this. So they'll typically tell you. If they don't, you could certainly ask, but I've usually told students in the past, it won't hurt to apply. They're going to see on your resume that you're not graduating until May 2024, for example. And so I likely and hopefully they wouldn't pursue you, but if they did, you know, certainly that's something that would get cleared up as they connect with you. So I would err on the side of applying rather than not, if there's ambiguity in that, because at least you're keeping yourself in the process. Anything like that?
I would just add with internships, the same thing. The timeline you gave is typical, but we get,
yes,
you know, postings the first 2 weeks of September with people still looking for fall interns every single year. So there's always, like, you know, the last minute people. So
I think we still have a few students registering internships for fall now. So,
yes, we do.
Yes. And then translating your experience to your resume, right? So you've gone through the search process, you've gotten that internship or that first job. The biggest component here is not waiting to translate this experience to your resume. So as you begin engaging in the position and learning about the role and the skills that you're gaining, I would start to kind of either update your resume accordingly, right, with these new internships, jobs, experiences in real time, pretty close to when you start, or at least taking notes of this so that you can come back and add to it at a later date, because it can be easy to forget. What did I do? How did I specifically do that? Right, things of that nature. And this will help you articulate your new skills and responsibilities and or contributions using action verbs so that you're highlighting your skills to the best of your ability. This is true not only for your resume, but this should also be done through your LinkedIn profile as well. So especially for networking purposes. Obviously for internships, they're designed to be more short-term. So this is going to help get that information down, highlight those skills for future internships, but even full-time. Obviously the concept when you accept a job is that you stay for a significant period of time. So hopefully that will be the case. And you won't necessarily need your resume too much, but you never know if you start to consider alternate opportunities. 2 years in, for example, just having an updated resume with that information is helpful. Be results driven when you're articulating your information on your resume for these new experiences. So think about not just the skills you gained, but concrete examples of those skills and what did you accomplish? What was the end result? How did it have an impact in your role and within the organization? Like I said, keeping notes is really helpful, and however is best for you to do that, whether it's just handwritten notes or plenty of, documents where you type out information. This will just help you compose those bulleted statements, and certainly feel free to schedule an appointment with us or the main career office, if non-Rockefeller or CHC, to review your updated document. Both Joan and I, our graduate assistants, are happy to help with that. I just worked with a student today who added in a brand new leadership kind of experience that he started like yesterday. And he was hesitant to put it in because he just began. And I said, listen, if you put it in, right, you can't say too much about it per se, but you have a sense of what the role will do and what you anticipate to do. And it will also show employers you're engaging in additional opportunities as you apply. So as long as you've begun the experience or are about to, you can start to add that onto your resume. So just some additional elements to an effective search, and then I think I'll be passing it back over to Joan. So informational interviewing, like I said, is very helpful. We were advertising some informational interviews with an alum last week. Opportunities like that are pretty great because it gives you the opportunity not only to network with an alum, but to learn a lot about the field, about her, the person's positions, and most importantly, their path. Because most paths aren't linear, right? They typically, some are, and that's great, but they typically go like this, and that gives you perspective, because a lot of pressure can be put on that first internship or that first job of this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and that's not necessarily the case. And I don't want you guys to add that pressure to yourself. Every experience, you learn from it and you grow, and you take that, and as you progress into your next step or next opportunity. So informational interviews are fantastic because it can give you a sense of how this person's career path was paved and how that person made certain decisions and how did they engage in certain things. And that helps open your perspective to things you could engage in, how you could view these things, how you could look at this perspective. It's freeing, it's very informative, and it gives great perspective for yourself. So where you can engage in informational interviews is really helpful. I tell students this a lot too. Interview for any and all positions you're interested in. Interviewing is not a commitment. Again, information gathering. And interviewing allows you to gather more information, show you're interested, you're invested, make more networking connections, show gratitude, ask questions, all very telling for your search. You could apply to a position, think 100% you're going to pursue this position, go into the interview and be like, this is not a good fit for me culturally. So, and as long as you're articulating and communicating with respect and gratitude and, timeliness in this process, you're not going to be faulted for interviewing for a position but turning it down. That's more particularly the case for full-time, but for internships as well. Dress for success. So any networking events that you go to or networking opportunities that you engage in, you don't have to be business professional in a full suit for everything you do, but just showing, kind of that professional presence. It just gives off a level of seriousness. You're taking this process serious, you're respecting their time, all of that. So that's pretty crucial. I know that Joan has mentioned this. We have like a closet of clothing for you Albany students or something.
Yes.
Okay.
The purple closet. I
Yeah.
think it's the purple closet. I always say the wrong name. It's in the campus center, and they have hours every day, and students can go and get, I believe, on the last I heard, it was 3 items or 1 full suit. So like 3 dress shirts or 3 dress pants or 1 full suit once a semester. So you should go every semester and get another outfit, and really start building your professional wardrobe. And that's for free. They're donated by people, like gently used items are donated by people who don't need them anymore, change sizes, all the things that happen. And they're also, some are donated by stores and things like that. So there's a lot of great professional clothing there that you want to snag.
Professional clothing is so expensive, so take advantage of this. I'm about to donate some suits myself, hopefully, so take advantage of this. It's a great opportunity for you guys. And then make your internship job hunt a hunt. You got to give it, we've kind of driven this point home, I think, at this point, so I probably don't need to articulate it too much after this, but give it the time and attention it deserves. That's the only way it's going to kind of progress forward. So, put your best foot forward. Organization is key with both internship job search and networking, for that matter. You could be applying to, even if you take that quality versus quantity approach, you're still applying because you're doing it more consistently to a lot of opportunities potentially. So having a list of those organizations, application deadlines, your status, did you follow up, networking, things like that. That can help you keep track of all these efforts. And the same is true for if you attend networking events or networking contacts, you can use these. And Joan's going to get into that momentarily. And networking is very much a part of this process. Very crucial and very important for you to engage in networking opportunities, whether it's career fairs, informational interviews, sessions like this, employer information sessions, and send follow-up communication. So, let's say you've applied to a position and it's been, 2, 3, 4 weeks since you've applied and you haven't heard anything, send a follow-up email to the organization or a potential contact, reiterating your interest and your qualification, put you on the top of their, list, in the top of their mindset. Sometimes organizations get busy, or it just takes different priorities come up, and that's why they're not moving forward in the application process. So be patient. It's not always a reflection on you as a candidate. And certainly follow up after interviews as well is pretty critical, not to mention networking events. Networking is just about communication and building relationships, and that impacts the internship job search process. So they kind of go hand in hand. This isn't a full-on networking presentation, but I had to mention that for that purpose. And then I'm going to pass it over to Joan.
Right. So one of my favorite things to do when you're doing a job search or an internship search is to create a log to keep track of everything, because it is overwhelming. And an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets or whatever format you like to use, but something like that is a very great tool, because you can make columns for, like all of the different places. When you start that early research, find companies you're interested in working for, or organizations or departments that you're interested in. They might not even be posting their, particularly with internship searches, like the timeline. If you start early, you might just be researching organizations that you're interested in. Put them in there, put their website in there, and then have columns for when do they post their internships. Maybe on their website, they say that they post their internships in October. So then you note that. So then that in October, you'll go back and check to see if they've posted it and what the deadline is. Make a column for what application materials you need to submit. Do they want a resume, a cover letter, an online application, writing sample, references? What are the application deadlines? And then track and then make a column for when you submitted your application, and if you've done any follow-up, or if you've heard back from them, and if you get an interview, and just keep making columns for all of the stages along the process. And it really can help you to keep track of it. And if you've got a lot of organizations on there that you've done some research, you can also prioritize them. I love color coding things. So if you like to color code, you can make the A the top priorities, or the B, or you can make those green and make the yellows the second, like color code, whatever system works for you, but come up with a system to keep track of it, because it's going to make it so much easier. Because you do still have to be a student and do your other job and all the other things you're doing. And so if you're spending every Sunday afternoon working on this, or a couple of nights a week working on this, you can go back in and go, okay, where was I at? Okay, great. And then I can check, and let me add in these things that happen, and just keep updating that, and it will really make your life a lot easier. So that's my big tip on organizing. All right. So some other things to keep in mind, especially whether you're looking for an internship, particularly a summer internship, where are you going to be living? A job after graduation, where do you want to be living? Are you looking for in-person, or a hybrid opportunity, or a virtual opportunity? There's pros and cons to all of those. So you need to think about what are the advantages? How does that fit with your lifestyle? The other things you're balancing, things like that. You want to consider, pay, salary, benefits, cost of living, where you're going to be. All of those types of things are important to, to be paying attention to and thinking about as part of this process. Other commitments, if you have, particularly with internships, what other commitments are you balancing? Do you have another job that you're going to be doing? Whether it's a, full-time job or an internship, or their travel, or other family commitments, or things like that, school commitments that you've got going on at the same time. So just some more things to be thinking about as you go through. So I think we're ready to just move on to some helpful tips and search links. This is a list of websites. Some of them are more general. LinkedIn is a great, general search engine. I don't know if Handshake's on here. I always send students to Handshake too. One of the advantages to Handshake.
It's on the next slide.
It's on the next slide. Excellent. Talk about Handshake then. USA Jobs, and I always like to let people know, and New York State internships. Often, I think students think, oh, government jobs are for political science majors and public policy majors. You know what? The government hires people in every single field. They hire doctors and nurses and janitors and accountants and biologists, and I mean, like any field the government hires. So don't rule those out, because there is some real advantages. So Going Global is a great website with international opportunities. Idealist, kind of focused on nonprofits. Indeed is another general one. District Daybook, that one focuses on some larger cities if you're interested in jobs and internships in larger cities. NewYorkCity.gov is the New York City government. Again, so local governments, especially large cities, hire people doing everything you can possibly imagine. I won't go through all of them, but you can see some of the others there. And for Rockefeller students in particular, in our job and internship search handbook, and you can never see it when, there we go. There's an even longer list.
I believe.
And things like that.
I believe
that are relevant to the field, more relevant.
Right here, John. I also linked it right here for.
You linked it right there. Excellent. All right, you can go to the next page. So, and some additional resources that really can be helpful from a lot of things. Our website and our career handbooks, the main career office also has a variety of, that's on the last one, but I'm going to talk about at the same time, resources, sample resumes, things like that on their website. Rockefeller has a YouTube channel, so like this workshop and many of our other previous workshops are recorded there, so you can go back and watch them anytime you want. Handshake, internship and job postings. And one of the things I always say about Handshake is, like, when students go to Indeed and some of those places, they're like, but all the jobs are asking for 10 years of experience. Well, the advantage to Handshake is it is really geared at internships and entry-level positions for college students and recent grads. So no one's asking for 10 years experience on a Handshake posting. So, and if you find one that is, let us know, because they shouldn't be there. It really is targeted.
Yeah, I'll mention this as well. I don't believe Indeed has this feature, but even general sites like LinkedIn will have ways for you to filter your search by experience level too. So entry level versus more mid to associate to senior. And you should utilize that feature even for internships, putting an internship level experience, because sometimes even when you search for internship by job type, it still pulls in full-time positions. So LinkedIn has phenomenal features with that through their job search engine. And I'll just mention this too, because a lot of students don't, or not a lot, but some students don't realize this. LinkedIn is mainly for professional networking, but LinkedIn has a very expansive, effective, intuitive job and internship board too. That's heavily utilized by recruiters. Some students don't realize that. So we keep mentioning LinkedIn, not just for networking, for job and internship search too. So you want to access the jobs tab and do an initial search to access the full board. But we'll be happy to walk you through that too if you have any questions. So.
And one other thing, I mean, Handshake has lots of stuff, obviously career events, you can register, schedule appointments, all kinds of things there. But I would recommend creating a profile. Just like you have a LinkedIn profile, I would create a profile on Handshake as well, because employers who are looking for college graduates or college students will sometimes, just like they would peruse LinkedIn, they will peruse Handshake. So you've got a profile, it's already there, but it basically is preloaded with your major and your graduation date. That's about it. So you can put a lot of other stuff in there. So I definitely recommend doing that.
And just like LinkedIn, Handshake has algorithms that can work to your advantage. So if you update your profile on Handshake, just like you do on LinkedIn, it can start to recommend positions, send you notifications for positions, just like LinkedIn, that makes sense for you because you've given them the information about yourself, you know, whether it's.
So they can be more helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Beyond major and class year, like skills, experiences, interests, all of that. There's features for that in the Handshake profile section. So.
Excellent. Big Interview, if you have want some practice interviewing, that is a platform that all you Albany students can access. You just log in with your single sign-on, and you can do practice interviews. There's also little videos in there about all kinds. If you struggle with a certain type of question, you can watch a little video with tips on that, or just, I say all the time. There's little tips on everything. I honestly don't know if there's one about that, but I'm assuming there is. There's a dozens of videos in there with tons of tips about different interview strategies, things like that. But then you can record yourself using any device, phone, tablet, computer, and then watch yourself. You can also share it with the career staff and get feedback from them or from us as well on how well you did. So it's a great tool. Some of us use it in our classes, actually, if we're doing career classes.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, we've talked about a number of times, but again, you want to be sure when you're starting a job or internship search that you're on LinkedIn. Update it. If you did your LinkedIn 3 years ago and you forgot to go update, and you want to make it look like you're active, and start participate. Don't just update your profile, but actually engage and do some interaction in LinkedIn as a social media platform. When you're in an active job search, that's important too, because people can see if you're actively out there networking and doing things like that. And then I cannot stress this enough. Ashley mentioned several times about informational interviews. UCAN is a network of UAlbany alumni who have volunteered to do informational interviews, review resumes, chat with you about things. And you can go on there. Again, you just log in with your single sign-on, and you can connect with alumni. You can search by certain industries, by certain geographic areas, and find people who are certain companies, find alums who would be willing to talk with you, and you can just contact them right through the platform. And then you can do a Zoom or a phone, or, right through the platform, video conference. And it's a great way to do that informational interview, find out more about, again, a particular company, a particular career field, or even a geographic area. If you're looking to move to, Atlanta, Georgia, and you've never known anyone in Atlanta, Georgia, but there's this job you're really excited about in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're like, well, what's life like in Atlanta, Georgia? Well, find an alum in Atlanta, Georgia, and ask them all about Atlanta, Georgia. So it's a great resource. And then again, for students in any major, the main career office and science library is a great resource for career support on all of these fronts as well.
Yeah.
If your department doesn't have their own career office.
Finally, just connect with us. So, I linked the page to the main career office because not all students necessarily will connect directly with us if not affiliated with Rockefeller as much. But certainly connect with us with any questions. You can access our email here, our phone number. I'm located downtown in Millenhall 105A, and Joan is uptown in Humanities B16, and we have office hours too, that are offered in person or over Zoom. I didn't link the Zoom links particularly here, but I certainly can when we share the presentation. I'm Tuesdays 3 to 4:30 and Fridays 12 to 2. Joan looks like she's Wednesdays 2 to 4. Leslie is Wednesdays 12 to 2, and Teuta is Thursday 1 to 3. So those are great opportunities to kind of pop in and ask some questions on the spot regarding any aspect of your career development process or program or anything of that nature. I'm sure the main career office and CHC has other resources and timeframes and ways to kind of connect with them as well. And it's not to say we won't connect with students outside of Rockefeller. We can certainly help, address some initial questions, point you in the right direction to other resources that might make a little bit more sense, more applicable to your majors.